Hey there, welcome back to the shed. So in today's video, we're going to be doing something really cool, really fun. We are doing a repair on this thing. So this is, let me get the light over here. So this is a binocular case from the First World War. How freaking cool is that, eh? So here is the story of this binocular case. I'm at the Minden Farmers Market in Minden, Ontario, and a fellow comes along and they have this case, and he says that it belonged to, I believe he said it was his grandfather, who was in the Canadian Air Force during the First World War, and it was used during the war, went to the front and back, and since the war, what happened is it's been hanging on a peg in next to the door at their family cottage for the last 100 years, hanging off of this strap here. And over the years, the family has used it quite well. Like whenever they want to go out bird watching, they take it down off the peg, they take the binoculars out, and they use them, and then hang it back up on the peg. Over the years, there has been this strip here has been replaced with a new piece of leather. And you can see where this hinge flap at the back is in need of repair. And this shoulder strap, it has seen better days, so we are going to replace that. But before we start doing anything with this, I just want to take a look at the way that this is made, because this is, at the time, this would have been a very mundane, utilitarian thing, but when you look at it now, you see just incredible craftsmanship in it. So, it's got the initials, I believe, of the person that it was assigned to, or maybe his rank or something, either there or on the back. Like it's got some writing on the back there. So that's just, written on with a stamp or a marker kind of thing. And when we take a look at the way that the lid is made, so it looks like it's just simply a box stitch around the edge. It looks like it's vegetable tanned leather. And you can see now some of that stitching has come loose on that lid over time. I am not today going to be attacking that lid. I'm just going to be doing the hinge, but you can see that it might not take very much in order to tighten that back up. And it's got like a felt or a velvet lining in here on the bottom. And then inside, we've got this felt velvet lining here too. And the way that it's made is, so when I put my finger in here, I can feel, it looks like there's a bit of a lining on the inside with that velvet, but you can feel, like you can see that there's this seam going down the back, and from the inside I cannot feel the seam, which means that there is some kind of a stiffener underneath of our felt here that covers up that seam from underneath of the velvet. This here, so there's like a little bit of piping that goes around the top here, and you can see where some of that thread is starting to wear loose over the years across here, a little bit of wear and tear on here. And then on the bottom we've got another box stitch. So what a box stitch is when you go through the top layer here on a bit of an angle, and then like it goes down through the bottom piece, so it sort of like hooks in a way. And like it is in remarkable shape for the shape that it's in. It's really incredible, really impressive to hold a piece of history in your hand like this, and to think, like, the stories this thing could tell if it could speak, eh? Now it looks like, so if I go to the back here, so where that hinge flap was, that leather is a little bit of a different color than the leather surrounding it, which makes me think that when this was made, they made it and they sewed it together, and then this darkening, like this dark patina around it, must have been from some kind of a dye that might have been put on after the fact, so that this flap here would have protected the underside from getting that dye treatment. Now, if there's anyone who knows anything about First World War binocular cases and can explain to me a little bit more about how this is made, I am absolutely all ears. But I think this is really, really fascinating. Really, really cool to see, the craftsmanship of a simple, mundane thing. Like, this is, at the time, these things would have just been, like, practically printed on assembly line. There would have been, it looks like it was made by hand, or maybe with a machine. But, the thought that this was just simply a utilitarian thing that, people were expected to beat up and lose and get trashed, and yet here it is now, over 100 years later, in, still fairly passable condition, like, still usable. Really, really fascinating. Really incredible. So, what we are doing today is we are going to be replacing this hinge flap and replacing our shoulder strap. Now, the shoulder strap, this is also something that's really neat and really fascinating about the way that this is done. I think I may wind up borrowing this on some of my other bags. So there's a button stud here from the side. So there's a little button stud there on the side, and then there's this little flap that the strap slides under that lets you take it on and off. So the whole idea is that you can very simply, very easily just take that strap on and off. Anytime you ever, like in the service, if you ever need to replace the shoulder strap, no fancy buckles or fancy attachments or punching holes or anything like that. Just simply, you just got a little stud now, and now you can hang that from anything. Like, you can take this strap, you could probably like hold the thing from just the one corner, like if you need to. Like, it's a really neat way to do the shoulder strap attachment that sometimes we forget about in modern making of things. So, the strap is made fairly, like, really simply. It's just a long leather strap. So I'm going to have to measure how long that is. And then it's got a keeper down here and a buckle, and then you would just adjust the length here for however long you want it to be. Now, this buckle here, this looks like it's probably also an original buckle to the bag, because you can see it's got like a lining, like a wrapper around the metal of that buckle. See if I can get this thing to focus on it. Yeah, so there's like a little wrapper that's sort of worn away on the metal there. So I am not going to take apart the shoulder strap. I'm going to give them back the shoulder strap the way that it is. I'm just going to create a whole new one, because from looking at this, although this is an old buckle, and this is a neat buckle. I suspect that if I was to ever actually try to adjust the length of this or try to take it apart, that it'll probably just crumble in my hands. So I don't want to take that risk. So we are going to make a new strap and use a new buckle. And then the family can choose whether they want to, use the old strap or keep it on the new strap. But either way, I'm going to give them something new. But yeah, this is just simply incredible history. And here's the thing that is blowing me away. The techniques that I use today in 2026, they look virtually identical to the techniques that this bag was made with back 1913, 1914, back in the First World War era. Like, it's just a saddle stitch, maybe a French stitch, maybe a box stitch, some glue, some velvet lining. Like, if you ever wanted proof that leather crafting is a timeless practice, a timeless art when done well, I am holding it in my hand right here. Alright, well, enough of me waxing poetic about this thing. I'm going to put the camera up on the stand and give you a bird's eye view, and we are going to get to work. See you in a minute. Okay, so first things first, let's do our shoulder strap first. Because the shoulder strap, I think, is going to be our easiest piece to do. So what we need to do is we need to measure out how long this shoulder strap piece is. Okay. Let me get my measuring tape. Okay, so the long strip of this, so this long piece here, is 52 inches long. Okay. And then our shorter one here looks like, so if we go from the tip down to the fold, and then past the fold, looks like it was about 12 and a half or 13 inches for the shorter one with our buckle on it. So 52 and, okay, so 52 and then about 13. Okay. So the buckle that I have that I'm going to use, it is a little bit of a bigger buckle than what's on the strap right now. Because this buckle is a 3/4 inch buckle, whereas this one that's on the strap, it looks like it is actually, you know what? I think they're both the same. No, I think the original buckle is a little under 3/4 of an inch. Might be half an inch. which makes sense because this strap is about 1/2 inch wide. So my new strap's going to be just a little bit wider. So instead of being a 1/2 inch strip, it'll be a 3/4 inch strap. But that's not a huge deal, I don't think. Okay, so 52 inches. So what we need to do, I need to make sure that I have a strip of leather that is going to be 52 inches long. So let's put this off to the side for a minute and grab my side of vegetable tan leather. Okay, so I have here a side of just plain natural vegetable tan leather. And what I want to do, I should be able to get 54 inches out of this thing. That should not be a problem. Okay. Alright, I am going to pause the video here while I go and find a big flat surface. I'm going to clean my table off a little bit, and I'm going to get the room in order to cut 52 inches off of this thing. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, and we are back. So this is a fresh new side of leather, plain vegetable tan, that I got from the Tandy store in Mississauga. They did not sponsor this video, but if you are in the market for buying some leather in Canada, and you do place an order through Tandy, tell them Tim from Lindsay sent you, and I don't know, maybe they'll like give you a high five or something. But anyway, we have here, I'm going to be able to get like all the way out here to 60 inches and beyond for across a nice straight cut here on the looks like the belly side of this leather, which is going to be just about what we need. So I'm going to grab my straight edge and my scratch awl, and we're going to get ourselves a good straight line here. Okay, so there is our straight line marked out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along, I'm going to cut that up with my utility knife. So let's roll this back up here. And let's see here. You know, one of these days I'm going to buy one of these things that has like a little spring in it. Save myself this extra a couple seconds of rolling these things up. Okay, so we're going to get our utility knife out. And we're going to make sure we got a nice, clean, fresh blade. So turn that around, make sure I got a nice, clean edge. Okay. Make sure I'm lined up on my straight edge. Okay, there we are. So, I'm going to put the rest of this back on the shelf for now until we need it for the next project. Put that off to the side for now. Okay. Now, this bit here, we need to cut, I said 3/4 of an inch, right? So let me get my strap cutter. Okay. So we're going to adjust this to 3/4 of an inch. And just to make sure that I've got the size dialed in, I've got this scrap line over here. I'm gonna cut. I'm gonna do like a test on this. Where did my shorter ruler go? Okay. Got a good straight line there. Okay, so here is the strip, and here is my pocket here. Here's one of these buckles, and so this is a hair too wide for my buckle. So I'm going to adjust my strap cutter in just a little bit. Okay, let's see if that'll be any better. And that one, is the perfect size. There we go. So that's why that's one thing I do like about having like extra little scrappy bits lying around, because it's much better to find out on a short little bit than the long bit, the long strap when I got the wrong setting. Okay, so we got our strap size dialed in. Now we just got to cut our shoulder strap. Getting these things started is always the most annoying thing. You know what? Let me grab a pair of pliers. There we go. Sometimes you just got to get just that little bit of grip on it. So, pull this down through here. Okay, So that will take care of our long part of the shoulder strap. Now we also needed to have a shorter part because there was the one that was going to be 52 inches and there was one that was going to be about 12 or 13. And I'm sure I'll use another 3/4 inch strap at some point in the next couple of months. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut another one to that same thickness because I'm sure I'll use it at some point. There we go. There we go. Okay. So we're going to roll this up and set it aside. We'll use it for another project. Now this is a 7, maybe 8 ounce vegetable tan leather. Okay, so now, let's put this away before I stub myself on it and get in trouble. Okay. So a couple things I gotta take care of. When I was cutting that, there's a couple bits here where I got little frayed ends on my straps. So we're gonna take care of that. So we're gonna cut those good and clean off. Okay. Okay. Now, let's see here. Let's take a look at our original strap here. So the way that this strap is done, so we've got an English point, and we've got the hole with this long slit on it, and this slit is about an inch long. Okay. So what I want to do is first, between these two straps, which one is the longer one? Okay, so this one here is my longer one. Okay. And then I also want to double check and make sure this is going to fit in those little shoulder slots on the bag, just to be safe. So when I go through here, yep, we're all good. We are going to have no trouble going through there. What about this one? Yep, no trouble. No trouble at all. Perfect. Okay. So need to start by getting our English points cut off on there. Okay, so this is my 25 millimeter English point. Now, where is my punching pad? I'll be right back. Okay, so start off with punching our English point here. You know what? Let me see if I can get that a little more centered. Yeah, that looks better. There we go, there's that one done. There we go. Okay, so we got our points on each of these. Now, we need to punch our hole that's going to go around the nub here. So, where did my scrap go? Here. So let's take my scrap, and now this hole punch, this was my great-grandfather's hole punch. So I'm going to try and see if this will be the right size. Try my luck. Because if it is, that'll be really cool. It'll be a really cool feat of history if I get to use my great-grandfather's tool to repair a 100-year-old piece of history here. And then I'm going to use this straight edge here to punch my slit. Okay, so let's see if this is going to fit around my stud here. So the hole that I made with great-grandfather's punch is too small. So I need to get a bigger hole. Okay. Easy peasy. Let me go find my bigger holes. I know I've got another set of round punches somewhere. Found ya. Alright, so if this is too small, that one there is about the next size up. That one there is a bit bigger still. Okay, so I'm going to try a 6mm punch and see if that will do the trick. Okay, let's try that on for size. Beauty. Beauty. That is exactly the size that we needed. Actually, I could go... You know what? I want to try a 5 and see if the 5 is any better. No, that's 6. 5. Let's try the 5 and see if the 5 works. Any better than our 6. Okay, so the 5 gives a little bit of a snugger fit. The 5 fits perfectly underneath of the nub on here. Let's see if I can show that here. So there's the 5, and then there's the 6. The 6 just feels a little bit looser. So I think the 5, yeah, I think our 5 is going to be our secret sauce here. Okay, so now that we know what we're doing, let's go to our strap, our shoulder strap here. Now the way this is done, we've got the one very long end has got a hole in it, and then our shorter end here has got a hole in it. So let's see here. So there. Okay. And on this end, so on the original shoulder strap, the holes were punched about every 2 inches. Actually, they're not actually regular. No. That's about every 2. That's a 2. That one, 2.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark every 1 inch for my hole where I'm going to put, where you can adjust the length for the strap, for the shoulder strap. Here we are. every 1 inch. So I'm going to leave the bottom 2. I'm going to go start from here. Now, what I'm doing with my grid here is I'm using the grid. I'm lining up the point of my strap with the 1/2 inch mark on the grid, so that way I can keep everything nice and in the center with all the way along, and using these grid marks, because the grid marks are in every 1/2 inch and full inch, right? So at my 2 inch mark, I put a spot, and then every 1 inch after that, we're going to put a spot where I'm going to be punching holes for our adjustable shoulder strap here. And on the original, if I lay the original one out, so the original one, okay, so this shoulder strap is going to end up being a little bit longer than our original, actually. So I can trim this back a little bit, actually. Okay, so we start here. Go down here. So actually, I can cut it to there. Okay. That makes sense, because when we measured out our strap on the leather, on the side of leather, the side of the leather was a little bit longer. So that makes sense. That jives. Okay. Set that off to the side for a minute. Alright, now let's go and do our markings. So we're going to go 2 up from the bottom, and we'll do every inch after that. Now on the original one here, the buckle is sitting about, I want to say, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So sitting about a foot from the end of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my adjustment holes for 1 foot down from here, and then another, say, 4 inches up from here. So that way we can adjust it later if you wanted to. Yeah, because in that way, that buckle is going to sit roughly around the top 2/3 of our holes. That's not a bad spot. Which also kind of jives. Actually, you know what? The original one, it had holes that went a little further than this. It had holes that go up to here. So let's do that. Let's do another. There we go. So that gives us basically the same length of adjustments that the original one had. Okay, let's get out great grandfather's punch. Okay, there we go. So that, we got our adjustment holes set up. So the long part of our shoulder strap is done. Now for the short part. So we said that we were going to go about 12, 14 inches. So okay, and then the original one folds over like that. Okay. Okay. So with this, I'm going to wind up having to fold this over in order to get that buckle to go through here. This is quite thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get my skiving, my antique skiver, or antique splitter. So bear with me for a minute while I go and get that tool out. Okay, so here we are with my antique leather splitter. So the way that this tool works is you adjust the gauge at the back, you slide your leather through. This blade here is super sharp. You tighten your gauge. There are numbers on it. I go by feel. And then you give her a pull, and then you're shaving little bits of leather off, little by little. So you can see, don't know if the camera's going to pick that up, but here is the original thickness, and here it is after using the splitter. It's amazing what a world of difference these two little thin slices are going to make when it comes to folding this thing over and getting that buckle to go on, because like you see that, how thick that is there versus how thick that one is there, right? Such a world of difference that a little shaving's going to do. So if you're, I picked this up, got this from a buddy of mine who had got it from a auction at the local Habitat for Humanity. If you're ever at an antique store and you see one of these things lying around, scoop it up. Okay, so we're going to go here. Just go a little bit more. There we go. That'll get us into a good spot for that. Okay, so let's put this away. This thing is big and clunky, so it sits on a shelf most of the time. I'll be right back. Alright, so now we are ready to put our buckle through here. Got to punch a hole for this tongue of the buckle to come out. So, let's see here, fold it in half. I'm going to make a mark at that half mark right about here. Okay, Okay, I have an oblong punch here that I think is going to be just the perfect spot, perfect size. So we just do that there. And then that's going to come through like that. Perfect. Does exactly what she needs to do. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where I want my stitching line to go. Where did my scratch all go? Actually, you know what? Let's just grab my punches. I'll just punch it right here. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my 3mm spacer stitching chisels from Tandy. And I'm just going to punch, let's see here, right about there. Okay, so that'll be a good spot for us to sew through the side here in order to secure that buckle. Now, let's see here. Okay. So the last thing that we need to do is we need to get our hole punch here at the end. Remember we were doing our 5mm. Get this line cut here. Okay. And we are going to need to make a couple of keepers here. So, let's see here. We've got this long strip here that we had extra. Let me get the skiver back out. I'm going to thin this down and we can cut it to the right size. There we go. Okay. So there's that one. Okay. So we need to sew this together. And the battery on my camera is starting to run low. So what we're going to do from here is I'm going to pause the recording. I'll charge up the camera. And I'm going to come back at you in a little bit when I've got some of this sewing done. Okay? So I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so we are back. Alright, so I've got our strap sewn together here. Got a couple keepers. And so now we've got our nice great big long shoulder strap, which is just about the same length as the original. Pretty nice. So the reason that I'm using the plain vegetable tan for this repair is because one of the really neat things about vegetable tan leather is that it will darken and age over time. The strap that is here that someone did this repair on at some point in the past, it is also vegetable tan leather, and you can see how it's got this natural patina over time, right? Here is my water bottle, and this is also plain, simple vegetable tan leather. So over time, as this hangs up in the cottage, over time this will darken into this nice honey brown color from just like the natural sunlight and oils on your hands and things. So although this looks out of place right now, give it a couple years and it'll blend right in. So we are done with our shoulder strap for now. Now we are on to our hinge. So as I was looking at this, and there's a couple things to note here, okay? So first of all, if you take a look at the spacing that I used on this here, or actually give me a second, here we are. So these are my Tandy 3mm spacing stitching chisels. Okay, and you can see how wide apart that is. Now, you can also see the stitching holes from our original flap here. The original flap, those holes are much closer together. And if at all possible, I want to reuse the same holes on the back of the bag because I don't want to have to punch new holes in the case and weaken this whole area if I can help it, right? Luckily, a while ago, I ordered these chisels. These are Wuta chisels that I got off of, I think, Amazon. And they seem to line up just about perfectly with the spacing that we need. See if I can get that to shine up there. Yeah, these look like they are pretty close. They're about as close as I think I'm going to be able to get. I think they... Actually, yeah, you know what? They're the exact same spacing. Let's see here. So that's going to go up there. Yep. So, yep, this is basically the same spacing as what was on this original piece. So, what we're going to do, this thicker leather is too thick for this hinge. Like, this hinge was naturally thinner. So, luckily I have some thinner vegetable tan leather. I have this piece here. And it's been in the sun for a little bit, so it's already starting to pre-age and pre-darken ourselves. So what we're going to do first is we're going to measure the size of our existing flap, and then we're going to try and pull these threads out and see if I can hopefully reuse the same holes that are already on here. So this is a part where maybe I'll put like onto like a speed angle or something. But let's see, can I zoom in a little bit? Okay, so let's see if we can make this work. You know what? I'm going to approach it from this side because I know that I'm throwing out this part of the leather anyway. Okay, there we go. So that is very interesting. So when this was made, this was glued down as well as sewn through. Very interesting. Okay. So there's the top half. Now this bottom one here, now when I rub my finger here, I can feel the stitching of that thread through here. Now when the family that owns this, when I talked to them about how I was going to do this repair, when I first looked at this, and the more that I touch it, the more I agree with this. It feels to me like when this was made, this velvet lining is glued to the back side of the leather, because as I like run my fingers through here, there's no spots where it's like coming up and away, like pulling apart. It doesn't feel like a loose lining. So what I told them was that I don't want to tear this seam across the top apart and try to tear apart this velvet in order to have a perfect like no thread seam through here the way it is now, because it feels to me like if I try to take this velvet apart, the whole like I'm just gonna make a dog's breakfast of this, right? So what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna see if I can punch through or see if I can like poke these threads through in order to clear these holes up. So let's see what happens if I try to poke the thread through from the one side to the other in order to make the hole through to the other side. Okay, so there is a fair bit of resistance to me just trying to poke through in order to get that hole there. So I think what I may need to do is I may need to, one at a time, go back through and re-punch these holes through. So I think that if I whack it with the hammer, I'd be able to get this through. Okay. Now this one is good. Now this goes 1, 2, and then one more. And this one up here. Okay. So this square measures 2 inches by 1 3/4 inches. Okay. Okay, so just got 1, 2, this is interesting. This is interesting. This has been repaired at some point in the past because this stitching here, these holes are different from these holes here, and this here is a line where it got ripped off at some point. So at some point somebody has punched these holes here that I ripped out, which are a different spacing than the other ones. Yeah, because this line here is a different spacing than the one above it. Interesting. Okay, so that's there. Okay. You know what? I don't like how much of an angle that is. That's too wide an angle. I'm going to do that again. try this again. There we go. That's a much straighter line. Okay. So, should be able to get that to line up like this. That should not be a problem. Now this, however, okay. Is there a way to do this? It's not going to hurt anything. Okay. I have an idea. I'm going to be back in a second here. Okay, what we have here is my most annoying and useful cobbler's anvil that I have mounted to an old set of table legs. And this will let me get a solid table underneath me for doing this, punching here. Because what I want to do is punch each of these holes through one at a time. Okay. This darn thread is in my way. I have to trim it back. Okay, so it is now it's about 11 o'clock at night. I'm getting tired, and if I have learned anything over the years is that when you're tired, you do not want to do anything important. So I'm going to pause here because when I look at what I've got on the go here, so here's my new little hinge flap, here's my holes punched, and I was able to get all the way through there. So when I go through with my needle and thread, I'll be able to get through there. So now it should just be a matter of sewing it up. But it's late. I don't want to screw this up. So I'm going to pause here and pick this up in the morning. I'll see you later. Safe travels. Hey, good morning. So it's now the next day, and I'm a little more wide awake. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to finish up sewing this together. Shouldn't take too long, just a couple of little seams. Should be pretty quick compared to the rest of this video. So just give me a second here. Make sure this is in the right spot. There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is this bottom half of this flap here. Now I punched 1, 2, 3, 4 holes there. So I'm going to go through here, there. You know what, let me zoom this in a little bit. So you can see a bit better of what I'm doing here. Oh, that light. Okay, something I want to double check before I go too far is make sure that this is going to fit where I need it to. So yes, once I get that on there, this will fit nicely. Okay. So now, okay. Oh, you know what? I did not punch across this little spine here. So I'm going to have a couple extra stitches here that I don't need to go through. So I'm going to do one of these. I'm going to go through here. Okay, so you know what? Actually, I'm going to redo this again. Okay, we said this was what, 2 by 1 3/4? here, I've basically got like a 4 and a 5. So if I do 4 here, okay, and then if I do my 5 here, okay, and then up here, do basically the same thing. Okay. And then on this one, this one's going to have okay. So on the flap here, I've got 8 holes on the bottom and a lot more on the top. So what I'm going to do, set my wing divider to the right distance. I'm going to use this to mark where this is going to go. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And then I'm going to use my single one of these to punch those holes. I don't think that perfectly lines up with the 2 tines. I think it's just a little bit wider. then on the back here, so here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or so here. So you know what? I think it's the same spacing up here. I wouldn't be surprised if this original spacing is like a 2.5 millimeter, because it is evenly spaced. Okay. Alright, let's try this again. Where the heck did I put my other sewing needle? Oh, here it is here in my lap. Always last place you look. think I need a flashlight or something. Okay, so there's the first one done. Here we are. There we go, get that thread end melted on us. Okay, time for this one. a Thursday morning. That's my alarm to make sure that I don't forget that I got to go to work today. I got about another half an hour before it's time to start work for the day. We'll see what we can get done in half an hour here. Okay, so now, a couple more here. Go. Okay, so there is our back panel done. Now on to our lid. And there we are. Nearly as good as new. That, I'm feeling quite good about this. So, let's pull this up here so you can see a little bit better. So here's what I've got going on here. So, what I did was I went through the 4 holes, the 4 or 5 holes on each side that I had punched, and then I went through the original holes up here. And now, yes, you can see the threads through from the inside. Let's see if I can get my flashlight in here. There we go. So you can see the threads coming in from the inside. However, I did tell the family that that is what was going to happen, because I don't feel comfortable tearing this lining out. It would wind like just ruining the lining if I took it out. But I am feeling quite good about this. So now we get our shoulder strap on here. Get our new shoulder strap on. And like I said, I'm going to borrow this idea. I'm going to make some bags that use this attachment style. And there we are. Good as almost new. Okay, I'm just going to take this outside for a second because I want to show you this in the natural sunlight, because I think this deserves a quick little photo outside. Here we are here. So, what I think is really impressive about this, and I'll be the first to tell you that this is not a super elegant repair. This is definitely just a utilitarian. It does what it needs to do. I'm actually most proud of the shoulder strap more than anything. But the thing that I find really incredible about this is this was made to be a tool. This did go to a war. It did save lives. It did actually see like actual real combat. Like here you can see there's some writing in there. So yes, this is over 100 years old. Just because it's old does not mean it needs to be in a museum. Old things can also be used. Like I really love the museums that. So I keep turning this thing over in my hands because it's just such a beautiful piece of craftsmanship that at the time was just unremarkable. It was just the way things were. Like there's nothing special about it, and yet there's everything special about it. But yeah, so what I'm trying to say is this was originally made to be a tool. It is made to be used, and any classic car owner will tell you that the fastest way to kill a car is to park it in the garage. And I believe the same thing is true about things like this. The fastest way to kill this thing is to stop handling, to stop using it, to stop making it a part of your life. And this family, they've made this a part of their life. It hangs up on a peg in their cottage, and whenever they want to go go do some bird watching, or whenever they want to, spy on the neighbors across the lake or whatever, they pull it down, they take it out, they use the binoculars, and put them back. They take care of it. And this repair here, that is proof of that at some point in the last 100 years, some family member decided to put that strap on there. This repair may very well wind up living with this thing for another 100 years. This shoulder strap, it's going to be a very long time before this shoulder strap gets worn out enough that you can't use it, right? Like, over time, my new leather will age and will look similar to this old leather. And this is going to have a new lifetime of use, which I think is just incredible. So, anyway, I'm going to stop getting all soppy here because it's 8:30 in the morning, 8:40, and I got to get to work. But I just wanted to show you this in the light of day and say thank you for letting me be a part of the journey and the story of this wonderful piece of history. So, safe travels. See you later.